Hello, my name is Terry Dobson. I'm a professor of design studies at Azusa Pacific University, and this is Igor. He's our teaching assistant for the semester. So we strive to educate career creatives to expand their potential to impact the world. We believe the purpose of design goes far beyond its history of service to consumerism. And we emphasize designing with rather than designing for. We foster empathy in our designers as their secret sauce to do design for good. And we serve students whose mission is to impact society as they become agents for social change. We encourage our design graduates to become problem finders, not just problem solvers. And the first step always involves reframing the problem. For instance, how do you call attention to humankind's negative impact on our natural environment? So while one student chose brandalism or subvertisement to cleverly connect corporate values in response to contemporary social injustice, another student deftly reappropriates the elements of a clock as a metaphoric mnemonic reminder that time is running out. Graphic reappropriation is a powerful way to quickly grab attention because it leverages our familiarity with popular culture. It makes the strange familiar by comparing something unknown to something known. And when you detonate a shared understanding, it produces a flash of insight and creates a link, a conceptual connection. Good design grabs our attention and invites the process of decoding meaning. So how can you transform an inherently negative icon, such as barbed wire, into a positive image? Well, by combining clever visual problem solving with powerful emotional storytelling. So design is problem solving and design is storytelling. Having a good sense of humor is both helpful in making a first impression and essential to maintaining a career as a creative person. I believe our God is a God of joy and He wants us to smile every day when we go to work. And I love cartoons about the funny side of Christianity. Now, I didn't draw these, but they're helpful in illustrating how graphic designers work. We use three basic building blocks to encode meaning into visual messages: images, words, and symbols. And a hallmark of quality design achieves unity by balancing the use of all three. Think of learning graphic design as learning a fundamental visual literacy, where the basic question is always when and how to use pictures in preference to words. But why use pictures? What is it about visual symbolism that graphic designers can make use of? Well, icons look like what they represent, but can often become old-fashioned and outdated. Symbols are visual substitutions whose meaning must first be learned. Indexical signs are actually signposts that point to something else. So the most basic function for all signs and symbols in graphic communication is the desire of the sender to influence the receiver. And understanding how words and images, together with ideas and interpretations, are used to make sense of the world is the basis of what we call semiotics. Logos should be so simple they can be drawn in the sand. And what we see here is very likely the first ever logo. So let me tell you why. In the first few centuries after the death of Christ, it was dangerous to be a Christian. And according to one ancient story, when a Christian met a stranger on the road, a Christian oftentimes drew an arc of the simple fish outlined in the dirt. And then if the stranger drew the other arc in the opposite direction, both believers knew that they were in good company. But why is this image connected with Christ? Well, in Greek, the word for fish, ichthus, is an acrostic for Jesus Christ. An acrostic is a kind of a wordplay, like an acronym, in which the first letter of each word spells out a message, often used as a device to aid memory retrieval. So just like the restroom icons, or when you see an icon on a freeway that shows you a bed with someone sleeping, it doesn't mean a mattress store, it actually means somewhere to sleep and rest for the night. These types of hybrid signs, or what we call indexical icons, are the most useful to graphic designers because connecting two suggested meanings is the best way to create memorable audience engagement. At Yale, I discovered how design must inspire through the elegant simplicity and raw beauty of timeless art. At Disney, I discovered how design must carry an authentic story that matters to us and makes the world better. But it wasn't until APU that I discovered design needs to promote the best of what it means to be human. Beauty, story, meaning, those are now the design values that shape my work. But meaning is the most important because people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. At each step of my journey, I use graphic design to show my creativity in unconventional ways. These self-promotional objects, as visual storytelling devices, were designed to show people my creative potential, and each handcrafted object aimed to trigger a smile in the mind of the recipient. Witty messages with clever concepts that were enjoyable to open, but really hard to throw away. And after first interviewing at Walt Disney Imagineering, I finally saw my dream career at a place where I could get paid just for coming up with ideas. The difference between an artist and a designer is that designers solve other people's problems, whereas artists, they come up with their own. I've always appreciated the art of design, but never considered myself an artist. But as a designer, I was interested in harnessing the power of play in new ways that brought people together. So what about a teeter-totter for 4 people rather than 2, or a razor scooter for 3? What about a 2-player competitive pinball machine or a 4-person cooperation game? My favorite example of picture language is the universal road sign used for a children's playground. Have you ever wondered why it's always a teeter-totter virtually everywhere around the world? Well, my theory is because it's more fun to play together than it is to play alone. And so I designed my entire creative career around inventing socially interactive experiences as a Disney theme park designer. In addition to designing the activities and games, I was also given the opportunity to imagine the fun worlds in which they were situated. And so as an art director for Innovations Pavilion, I used Walt's model of Disneyland to inspire imaginative new interpretations for each of the 4 lands. At Home with the Future was the theme, and the treehouse of technology became the weenie. This 3-dimensional centerpiece drew guests to the heart of the attraction, but branched out to touch every aspect of their lives. The best part of being an Imagineer, though, was collaborating with awesome artists, world-class writers, magicians, scientists, and engineers, all of whom were at the top of their game and collaboratively designed together. And as creative director, my greatest success was building a team, a well-oiled machine that worked so well together, I was asked to lead the same team again on a second successive project, a 60,000 square foot pavilion called the Millennium Village for Epcot Center at Walt Disney World that brought over 50 new countries together under one roof to celebrate the new millennium. After my first decade at Disney, I became immersed in every aspect of the brand as a career creative. Designing Disney attractions for all these different divisions opened many doors I never dreamed feasible, from Disney theme parks to Disney cruise lines and eventually to Disney Online. After the turn of the millennium, Disney's new growth segment focused on delivering rich content via the internet. Disney was going digital, and the transition provided even greater opportunities for new storytelling, primarily because we were able to experiment with mixing the Disney evocative mythologies together in ways never before possible. The very best time of my entire creative career was when I got to dream up a new video game concept. Once the villains could live in each other's worlds, we were free to imagine an upside-down kingdom where evil conspires to overthrow good, and the Disney villains finally get their revenge. One by one, Captain Hook rips the happy endings from the magic storybook. So now when Peter Pan walks the plank into the awaiting jaws of TikTok, that's it, the end. No more Peter Pan. When Foul-Fellow Fox and Gideon the Cat lead Pinocchio innocently into Pleasure Island, he never ever returns. The end. And Snow White, when she bites into the poison apple, she falls into a deep, deep sleep. The end. Players have one night to right the rides and ride the wrongs, and otherwise the guests arrive in the morning will be the unhappiest place on earth. The first title of the Disney Villains Revenge series focused on Fantasyland, and even though this video game won the Best New Children's CD-ROM Game in the year 2000, the shift to delivering content online had already begun. And so we reimagined the story as the theme for Disney's first massively multiplayer online game called Virtual Magic Kingdom. All the time I had no idea of the power of virtual rewards, how coveted they were, and the extreme lengths players would go to collect them. Every virtual item in the game was inspired by a real object you can see in Disney theme park attractions. Even though Virtual Magic Kingdom was free to play, the best virtual rewards, however, were, and the most coveted items, like Aladdin's Magic Flying Carpet, you could only win by guests who visited the real Disney theme park. So our target audience for the game was tweens, and their ability to influence and persuade their parents to take them to Disneyland was the nefarious scheme employed by Disney marketing, who came up with a name for the campaign called Tweenfluence, and millions of parents must have been exposed to the VMK influence of their tweens. eBay eventually banned the sale of virtual items in 2005, so Disney, we needed another way to fuel the aftermarket to build the virtual economy online. And once inside Disneyland or the Virtual Magic Kingdom park, guests were able to play VMK quests, which rewarded players for completing scavenger hunt types of adventures to answer park trivia. The path to riches for in-park quest players rewarded them with trading cards as prizes, and each one had a unique scratch-off code which unlocked desirable virtual items inside the game. Creating a virtual world meant also creating a virtual economy, which meant pricing objects, creating scarcity, driving perceived value, routinely hosting sales, and especially rewarding social interactivity between players. Just before eBay banned the sale of virtual items, one of the original VMK game makers decided to leave the company and sell his pair of green virtual flip-flops online to the highest bidder. These were so rare that they were legendary. Look, I even found this fan site photo of our hand-baked green flip-flop cookies on Flickr. And for those avid players who lived inside the game for as long as it was open every day, the status of owning and wearing these green flip-flops, these most coveted 15 pixels, was worth $1,025 of US real money. We intentionally designed VMK so that socially interactive games rewarded players with the highest credits. Players used these credits to buy virtual items, to create their own rides, and design games within their personal rooms. They invite their friends to ride and vote on the best. And the desire to become the best ride designer and collect all of the most rare virtual items created a cyclical play pattern where online virtual behavior motivated offline real-world behavior. Once the game took off on a massive scale, we even built real Disney theme park attractions to physically look like the virtual places we digitally created online. Snow White's cottage deep in the forest is an example of a game level meticulously tuned to balance aesthetic beauty with gameplay functionality. Each screen begins with an imaginative yet practical concept sketch, which digitally translates into a 3D online gameplay environment. The Virtual Magic Kingdom was just as fun to explore and conducive to discovery as visiting the real Disneyland park. But by far the most fun was reinterpreting all the Disneyland crown jewel icons as collectible items within the game. So here we see Maleficent's throne recliners, Lumiere lampstands, teacup love seats. It's a Small World actually became the fictitious import-export company with Disney Cruise Lines delivering pallet loads of new merchandise. Avatar design became very important because of the need to celebrate diversity and be inclusive while sensitive to racial stereotypes. After focus testing, it showed us that we were really off target with modern trends, and so the first thing we did was hire young designers, specifically female designers, for fashion, styling, gameplay. It turns out hairstyles, clothing, shopping were all very important social aspects of the game, especially for girls. And the underage tween audience required the need for moderators to oversee activity within the game, which meant that ultimately we needed opening and closing hours just like the real Disneyland park. The difference between an amusement park and a theme park is simple. It's story. Disney storytelling is the reason kids love to build their own rides. Pixar storytelling makes them want to dress up and wear character costumes. And whichever Disney-Pixar properties became the most popular, VMK incorporated into its locations, its marketing, promotions, and collectible 3D objects within the game. Designing the online interface and the user experience to enable players to buy a product at Disneyland and get one free virtually for your online avatar in VMK is what earned me a US patent for design and technological innovation for Disney, as well as inauguration into the Disney Inventors Hall of Fame. When humans aren't looking, toys come to life. That's the basic story conceit of Pixar's Toy Story. But what makes the franchise rich enough for a fourth sequel is the opportunity to explore the varying realities of these toys as they are awakened. Both Buzz Lightyear and Sarge take their jobs very seriously. Buzz truly believes he's lost in space on a mission from Star Command. Meanwhile, Sarge truly believes he's sending his men into hostile territory. They both believe so much in their own character backstories that they would vehemently oppose any idea of being just merely toys. Much of what formed me as an adult, I can now trace back to being a kid. I was warned about having an overactive imagination. I was always looking for ways to turn my chores into games. When I was young, I remember role-playing with my Green Army men, imagining extraordinary missions in my very ordinary backyard. But in my imagination, I was deep beneath the humid jungle canopy. Sarge is calling in a cargo drop from a chopper. Go, go, go! We gotta get to the drop point! At Disney, we were taught to nurture our childlike sense of wonderment and trained to channel our overactive imaginations. We learned how to create broad appeal experiences with the lowest possible barriers to entry. Simply, a willing suspension of disbelief. When I left Disney to become a professor, I wanted to apply what I had learned about design at Disney to do good for the world. This was the same time my family and I first came to Christ together, and it prompted me to start thinking about the third and most important value that shapes my work, meaning. Students design projects that integrate faith, service learning, and civic engagement, and explore 5 spheres of empathy as they do design for good. We train designers to nurture their emotional intelligence, developing the ability to solve problems from another person's perspective. And there's no better model for human-centered design than Christ's love and the biblical propositions of a Christian worldview. We graduate designers with a professional design methodology that combines rational problem-solving with emotional storytelling. But our secret sauce is empathy. Combining a liberal arts education with a visual arts education gives you both something to say and a visual voice with which to say it. We want our designers to make a difference in the world. We want them to continually redefine what design can do in terms of raising awareness for social injustice, raising funding for just causes, and how design can positively impact society. Our mission is to transform existing situations into more preferable ones by design. Design can even help students gain a deeper understanding of the difference between complex terminology like equality and equity, or diversity and inclusion. By developing their own visual metaphors to tease apart these nuanced terms, students are empowered to explore answers to the prompt, can there be more to this story? Design has the power to entertain, influence, and persuade, but design also has the power to inform and raise awareness. Last year's historic intersection between the global pandemic and the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, and so many other Black lives whose names we will never know, not only highlighted the dire consequences of relegating the liberal arts to a position of irrelevance in higher education, but also revealed the underlying issue that truly needs to be addressed, the systemic institutionalized racism. Design can help bring sufficient focus to equity and justice, but it's truly the compassion in the hearts of our students that will help them change the world. Thank you.